The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
Welcome to the Renaissance Podcast, a podcast for Renaissance women
and men
who want to create a modern-day Renaissance in their life and business.
We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and share their unique stories.
Are you ready to create your Renaissance? So excited to have you on the show. I'm going to give you a proper introduction because I just think you have the most incredible background. You are such a fascinating person, and I'm so honored for you to be on the show. So, Rea Frey is the award-winning #1 bestselling author of 6 novels. She is a silver, that was it.
Falchion.
Falchion. Silver Falchion Awards finalist, was voted Chicago Reader's Best Nonfiction Writer, is a book pipeline film adaptation winner, and has been featured in US Weekly, Entertainment Weekly, Glamour, Hello Sunshine, Marie Claire, Shape, Crime Reads, Writer's Digest, WGN, Fox News, Today in Nashville, and Talk of the Town. As a book doula, I'm obsessed with that. Rea helps others birth their books into the world, and welcome to the Renaissance Podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, what a treat this is. I just feel like your career is just remarkable. I mean, I've been kind of binging you on other podcasts in the last couple of weeks, just prepping for today. And I'm like, how long did you know that you were a writer? Because your first book, which I know isn't so much in the credentials, but you were 22.
I was.
That is like such a, how... I feel like I barely knew how to drive at 22.
Well, I barely knew how to do anything at 22. I also got married at 22. It was my starter marriage, which I don't.
We love a starter marriage.
Starter marriage, yes. So not the best decision making at that period of time. But, I grew up as a writer, just more like journaling, letter writing. My dad was a writer. He never tried to get published, but I always saw the love of words from him. So he really gave me that gift very, very early on. But I grew up like so many people thinking, I love writing, but could I make a career at it? There was no information about how to turn it into a career. And so I did love school. I kind of excelled at school, but I was almost burned out after high school. I didn't really want to go to college. I wanted to go to work and just kind of skip over that step. But I did end up going to college and studied creative writing, journalism and creative writing, and minored in psychology. And I saw all my professors were publishing books, and I really wanted to be just like them. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can write a book. And I actually, when I was a freshman in college, this is another story, but I was a competitive boxer. I was always into health and wellness, sports, and ended up getting brain surgery when I was 19 years old, which led me to my first novel. I wrote it post-brain surgery while I was recovering. And it had a lot to do with kind of what I went through, as most first novels do. They're like a little autobiographical in nature. And I wanted to get it published. And so it was so crazy that I took 4 years of school and not a single class taught me about the business of publishing. They were all craft-based. They were all about how to write a good story, but none of them taught me how to get my work out into the world. So I did my own research and thought that I found a very reputable publisher. They were not. The name should have given it away. It was Dare to Dream Publishing with a 2 instead of the number 2 instead of TO.
I can almost see the logo.
Yes. Oh, it was horrific. But I was just blinded by wanting to be published. I wanted to prove myself to my professors, to the world. And so, long story short, I did get published by them. It was a bit of a disaster. The product was not, if you Google A Woman's Ring by Rea Frey, you will be shocked at what the cover looks like. I could have, my daughter could have designed a better cover, but the whole process was just a nightmare. The book was never in bookstores. I never made a dime. And so from that experience, I realized I don't know what I'm doing. I just was in a hurry to get published. And so I took it upon myself from then on. I graduated college, and then I went to work in every facet of publishing, writing, and editing that you could possibly imagine, from being a journalist on death row and working with convicted murderers. Yes, that's a whole different side of my path, to becoming an editor and a ghostwriter from a very young age. I remember my first ghostwriting gig was being sent to Switzerland from a literary agent to write a book on Swiss chocolate. And like, I was just dabbling everywhere that I could because I wanted to know how to do this and how to do it correctly. And then from there, of course, that really spiraled into helping other authors too, because there's not enough information on how to make this into a career. And that is what I am so passionate about, as well as, writing for myself.
It's so interesting to talk to you because this is such an entrepreneurship show.
Yes.
And, we've all known authors, and my mother is an incredible author and writer, but I think it's, and so many people in my life, it's the business piece
Yes.
that is often, I feel like, missed, right? Can you
100%.
speak to that? Because you were
Yes.
it seems like from such an early age that
Yes.
that clicked for you, like high school clicked for you.
It did. And that's funny because a lot of writers, especially let's say fiction writers, I'm a fiction writer. I have written nonfiction in the past. If you're a fiction writer, you're also an entrepreneur. And so many people don't look at it that way. Your book is a product to sell. And if you are, whether you're self-publishing it, you're doing it yourself, or you are getting a book deal from a publisher, publishers are corporations. And you are literally starting your own business. And I don't know, that just clicked with me very early on. I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur, but I was like, oh, this is actually a business. And, when I was 22, I didn't really understand how to go about starting a business, especially like in the author space. And from there, I pivoted to nonfiction and had 4 books published and was like, okay, I can get a book deal, but like, I'm still not really building anything. I don't have a brand. I don't understand what an author platform is. I don't know like where my readers are and how to reach them. So it took me like 5 books before I really understood like, oh no, this is a business. You can make money at it, but there's no one out there showing people how to set it up properly from the start. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. But if you are an author, whether you are fiction or nonfiction, and you want to write a book, you are an entrepreneur. And I really, really would love to see that shift in the industry where people are really understanding that, like, how to invest in themselves, how to build their platforms the right way, and like how to make money at this. You can make great money, but people are like, oh, I'm not worried about that, or it's just a hobby. But it doesn't have to be. And that's important to know, I think.
Well, and there's so much nuance to this topic because I feel like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you are in the space of being B2B with publishers and agents and all of that and PR people and all of those things. But then also the consumer and having community and a fan base around what you're doing. I mean, I feel like if you read a book that you fall in love with, you kind of fall in love with the author. I mean, I've done that. How many times over have we all done that where it's like you just are like, I finish a book, I'm like so obsessed with it. I have got to figure out who this person is.
Yeah.
And so tell us like, what advice do you give for people that, want to write a book, don't have an author platform? What does that look like? I know you said there's no right or wrong way, which I think is an awesome way to put it. But what advice would you give if you could?
Yes. I mean, so this is something I love talking about because I feel like, let's say 20 years ago, or even when I was starting, which was 20 years ago, to be a writer, you could still just be a writer. You could be a creative. Like, it is important to build a platform and all of that, but it was kind of before social media. And your team at the publishing house really took care of like the sales and marketing and your book reaching readers and all of that. And so the writers just got to write. You weren't so focused on like, oh my gosh, how do I sell this book? How do I get this out there? I got to have a million social media. It's just so much pressure. So my first rule of thumb with anyone who wants to do this and wants to build their platform, and everybody skips this step, but is to define your goal for your book, your author goal, your long-term goal, this one-off book. Maybe you just want to write one book. But really look at why you're doing it. I think people don't really think about that, or they look at these other success stories because that's all we hear about are these just like 7-figure book deals and so who like hit it out of the park and sold 1 million copies. But that isn't necessarily what everyone needs or wants. So I really start digging deep with people like, why are you doing this? So like if you wanted to write a book, maybe it's really to serve your business, to book more speaking gigs, to, help sell other products. For nonfiction, it's really easy to figure out what your goals are and build your platform. Hopefully you already have a business, you have some sort of existing network or community that you're already talking to. And so it can be a little bit easier and a little bit more natural to build the platform, to figure out where your audience is, to, start talking to them before you ever even have a book, which is really kind of the first step after you define your goals. But for fiction writers, it's like, why are we doing this? How do we build a platform? There's no sense of urgency for someone to buy a novel. So that's really difficult. And most novelists I know are introverted. They aren't really great at sales and marketing. They don't love social media. They don't want to put themselves out there constantly. It feels very out of alignment. So when I coach people, I'm like, if you don't want to do that stuff, don't do it. My first rule of building something is figuring out where you want to be, what you love to do, and ditch the rest. One of my goals is to be an author without social media, because I'm so raising a daughter. I am so adamant about mental health and just how social media, however great it can be, it creates compulsive behavior. And I think more and more people are waking up to the fact okay, I just spent 4 hours scrolling today instead of writing my book or spending time with my friends face to face. And so for a lot of people, they come to me when they want to build something like an author platform, and they just talk about the things they don't want to do. So I really focusing on, okay, what do you enjoy? For me as an author, I love podcasts. That feels so amazing to me. I'm not having to build this huge audience of 100,000 people. I can then go onto other built-in audiences and networks and talk about my books or what I love to do. And that feels really, really good to me. I happen to love ticketed events and TV. I do love little TV spots, or doing, I like writing, columns or op-eds, things like that. I really love. And so I think that's really important for people to kind of set their goals, figure out what they love to do, and then really understanding the different paths to publication. Because a lot of people, they want to be published and then have zero clue on what does that mean? What's the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing? So I really coach people through that. And then from there, once we pick which publication path, we really talk about how to get their work into the world in a way that feels good to them. So that's the exciting thing. If anybody is listening to this and they want to write a book, you can be published today. It's just figuring out what way works best for you, and then how you want to build the brand, the business, the platform, and the products, because it is, like I said, I sound like a broken record, but it is a business. Whether you're writing the next great American novel or you're writing a business book, it's all under the same umbrella.
Yeah. I love that so much, because we talk about this all the time, especially when we build personal brands.
Yeah.
It's find your why.
Find your why. That is literally is my thing. Is what is your big why?
Why are we doing
Yes.
this? And like you said, if it is to monetize your business and, position you as a thought leader, then that makes total sense. But if you really don't know, there's some work there that needs to be done. And I would be curious to ask you what some of that work looks like for the authors that come to you and be I don't know. I just sort of feel like this should be a thing I should do.
Yep. And that's really interesting, because a lot of people don't come to me with the I don't know. They're well, I want to be on the Today Show. I want to be on the New York Times. I want to sell 1 million copies. And then when we really start digging into it, they don't want those things at all. They think that they do. They think that they should, because those are the metrics to success. That's what we've learned. That's what it means to be successful in the industry. Or if you're in business, there are certain metrics. And I have never run my business like that, in helping other authors. I don't do things like anybody else, because it doesn't feel right to me and my body. So again, with the individual, no individual looks the same with what they want or how they can launch their books into the world. And that is the beauty about it all. It's just really digging in a little bit and figuring out why this book, why now, and why they're the only ones to write it. And when we really do find that out, then it's way easier to figure out what to do next.
I love that. And I love the idea too of just finding your medium too.
Yes.
You don't have to be on video.
Nope.
If it doesn't feel organic to you, you don't have to do podcasts. You don't have to have a podcast if that's not organic to you, because what is success is, what you can be consistent with and what you can show up with, right?
Yes.
But I am curious to talk to you about just like the money piece.
Yes. I love
Money.
talking about the money.
I love that you do.
Yeah.
And I love your approach to this because, man, it's just not everyone needs to have millions of followers. And followers, gosh, it's like I go back and forth because can they be credibility? Absolutely. I know you would agree with me. But again, it's what feels organic to you. And I love that so much. But back to money, because so many people want a book, right?
Yep.
And why do they actually, I know there's layers to it, but at the top of it, well, I want to be successful. I want to be on the Today Show. I want my bank account to reflect, this book that I just put into the world. How can we, create this author platform and monetize our work or our work that we've ghostwritten with you or whoever, without maybe having 1 million followers?
Yeah. I mean, so here's the first thing that I think people really need to hear is having a big following does not translate to sales, like almost ever. I mean, sometimes it does, but I've worked with a ton of like celebrities and public figures who have these really robust networks. And then they end up selling, I don't know, maybe like 5,000 copies, 10,000 copies. And then I've worked with people who have a really committed, small, engaged community of maybe 1,000 followers. And not even, it doesn't have to be followers on social media. It can be newsletter subscribers. It can be, it can be all these different things. And they could sell 50,000 books. So the big numbers don't often mean that you're automatically going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. And I go to bat. So when clients come to me and they want to publish a book, so I take them not only through the whole process, but then I pitch them if they want to be traditionally published, meaning they want to get paid for their work, get a book deal, have a publisher, distribute their book nationwide. I help them through every piece of that. And I pitch them to agents and editors that I know and trust. So that part is really important, but they're always the main barrier to entry to getting traditionally published is the strength of the author platform. And I fight for my clients so much because I've just straight out asked agents like, okay, you say it's not vanity metrics, it's not followers, but it is. So tell me, what number would you like to see? And while there's no like hard and fast number, a lot of them will say, I want to see at least 50,000 followers across some platform. That doesn't have to be social media. But they want to see that these writers or business people, if you're writing a nonfiction book, have already done the due diligence of building a community or network somewhere, either online or offline, that if they're going to invest their money in you and pay you money to put your book out into the world, they want to know that it's going to sell to your community. They want to do less work than I'd say like 20 or 30 years ago. They'd put in so much more time and effort. And so for some people, that's fine. Like, they have a business, so they're already talking to people and they know exactly who they're going to like push their book to. But for a lot of people, that can feel very overwhelming and very discouraging. Like, as you know, like to build an organic following today can be almost impossible. Like it just feels like this huge hurdle. So I always say, like, instead of really killing yourself and trying to like build, this huge network, look at places where you can have like the most impact in maybe the shortest period of time. Where I feel like a lot of nonfiction authors, if they're writing about something specific, I always say like, try to write, columns that taking the content from your book and trying to pitch it to online magazines, to op-eds, like start building your community by capitalizing on publications or other, influencers that you might be able to reach out to and capitalize on their already baked in audiences. That's why, again, I think podcasts are so great rather than you having to try to do all of that work today. But I'm also really passionate about, like, I've helped authors sell so many books when they don't have a huge engaged network, but their content is so strong and so important that we know how to pitch it and how to really work with them. When I work with clients, I come up with this massive marketing plan to show them how to really prep themselves to sell their books and promote before, during, and after launch. And we only focus on tactics that like really feel possible for them and feel good for them. So that's the first rule of thumb, I think, of building a platform. Just ditch the numbers. It doesn't really matter, but figure out, you do need to figure out where your potential readers are.
Right.
What are they reading? Where are they showing up online? What social media, platforms are they on? And in my journey, and so, I had 4 or 5 books published. And then it wasn't really until I turned back to fiction and like I got my agent in 2016 that I was like, I don't really have a very clear brand here. And I've kind of been all over the board with fiction and nonfiction. And so I knew I needed to build something. And so I chose Instagram. And I wasn't on Instagram at that time. I was very, very like anti social media. I was like, I don't want to do this. But I really kind of built very, very slowly. And then like so many people, I was like, well, I guess I need to be on Facebook. I guess I need to be on Twitter. I guess I need to be on, I won't do TikTok. But I since then deleted all of those except Instagram. I did keep one because my publishers, quite frankly, are like, you have to be somewhere. So I chose the place that feels good to me. It feels positive to me. I have a lot of boundaries around that. So that's the thing for people too. Like, if you feel like you have to be on, social media or you have to do all of these things, put boundaries in place so it's a positive place to be. People can tell when you don't love, posting or doing what you're doing. But also, I think it's a lot of trial and error. If you are building something, and let's say you are on Instagram or TikTok, and you're not getting a return on that investment of time, then that's probably your sign that that's not the best place to be. For me, I built literally a multiple 6-figure business from scratch by word of mouth only. No marketing, no social media, no typical business tactics, no funnels, no paid advertising, nothing. I decided like, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to do it organically. I'm going to do it slowly. And it just worked because I was doing it the way I wanted to and not the way we're taught to, which is fine for some people. But for me, I don't like following rules, and I don't like, if something doesn't feel good in my body, I'm not going to do it. And it's taken me a really long time to work with, but I think it's the same for authors. If this feels like a yuck or like, no, I don't want to do this, then don't do it. You don't have to.
Man, there's so much goodness in what you just said. And I want everyone to like go back and listen to the
Rewind.
last 45 seconds of what you just said, because it's so true. $1 million business doesn't mean that's the only path. A multi 6-figure business doesn't mean that's the only path. Like, what if it's just what feels right to you and what feels sustainable and what feels good and what feels like it can have longevity with how it's going? Now, if there's no momentum, then we've got to do something, right?
Definitely.
But if this is working for you and it is working for you, clearly, my God, like we don't have to kill ourselves.
No.
That's just so old school.
It is so old school. And so I've been working with authors almost 20 years, like off and on, but I really built it first as a side hustle. I just wanted to see like, could I help authors and can I make money at this? Not that it was about the money. It was very like service oriented first, but I also wanted to make, a living, because being an author, relying completely on income as an author, and we can talk about like how you get paid, but it's not great. It's not in service to the author. You get paid once you earn out what's called an advance, which is the money the publisher gives you up front. You start making royalties, but you get paid every 6 months. So yeah, like, I mean, come on. What other job do you get paid every 6 months? So I knew I was going to have to build something else in order to survive, essentially. And when I started to really like build, I just found that people really want to write books. 80% of all people want to write books and they want to make that investment in themselves. But I didn't decide to turn this into a legitimate business until the top of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And my husband quit his like 6-figure job to come help me. And we were all in. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, what have we done? And instead of it floundering, I knew early on, I did not want to build a big team. I don't want to manage people. That's not in my design. I'm not supposed to manage people. But I had a couple of different people, but we had 100 clients our first year, and facilitated almost 100 book deals, which was insane. So I did burn myself out. And I was just really afraid to say no early on because I was now kind of like the sole breadwinner in our partnership. And I was like, oh God, I'm building this thing. And very quickly realized like that was not sustainable. I wasn't building this big scalable business because it was me. And so I had to learn a lot of hard lessons. And I've since kind of dismantled certain offerings, and I'm really rebuilding something that feels like very nourishing to me, good to my nervous system, no hustle whatsoever. It's not my DNA anymore. Like I cannot kill myself for work anymore. There's so much more to life than work and business and money. And I feel like I'm just kind of waking up to that fact. And it's really, really so much more rewarding.
Man, I love all that. So was it the time, just looking at the timeline, was it 2019? Was that the year you had 100 clients? Or
2020.
Right? So it was 2020. It was
2020
happening in that
yep.
year. What I was going to say is like, don't you feel like in 2019, we all were like, 2020 is going to be our year?
Yes, that's what we had like, because we launched in January of 2020 and we were like, yes, this is our year. This is our year. And it ended up being the year, surprisingly, but there was so much turmoil and just chaos going on. But I think a lot of people decided, if I don't write my book right now, I am never going to do it. When am I going to have the time to just like go all in? And so it was really beautiful to watch, and people come, to us with just like an idea in their head and to walk away with a book deal, or if they, if they were self-publishing, to walk away with like an actual product that can then go to thousands and thousands of people and help them with whatever it is they're doing. Like it's such a beautiful cycle. But there was a lot of learning, in that first year for sure.
This is so random, but I feel like, and I'm obviously on social a lot.
Sure.
It feels like reading right now, this is going to sound hilarious, is trending.
Oh my God.
Isn't that? But
it
feels like maybe it's post-pandemic. And I do feel like it was a big thing then, because what else were we doing other than scrolling TikTok and doing all the random shit people were doing? But like, it feels like right now, reading is having a moment. And I'm hoping that that's part of the moment and the energy that like people like you are infusing into 2024, which is like, let's reverse engineer how to be successful.
Totally.
And let's kick hustle culture to the curb.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that's a thing? Is the industry booming, or am I just being ridiculous?
No, I mean, it's really interesting. So it's funny. I put all of my eggs in the publishing industry basket, which is a tough, patriarchal, antiquated business. It just is. But there's so many different ways to publish today. You don't just have to be like traditionally published. And so I feel like through every up and down in our whole world, like books have always still been here to stay. And I do feel like with the boom of social media and just like, just kind of the short, little digestible, consumable content, a lot of people did kind of get away from reading, like reading actual books. But now you can consume them in so many different forms with audiobooks and ebooks and physical books that, I feel like it's
more available. It's more of a thing. And then I think with social, just.
And the sharing. I mean, that's,
sharing.
I will say on
and
Instagram.
Podcast.
Yeah. And podcasts, all of it. The Bookstagram community has been so kind to me and my books that it has been nothing but a beautiful, positive space. And I'm, again, very protected with my boundaries and like what content. I'm not a consumer. I'll get on and I don't use it the way I'm supposed to. But I find that when I start to consume, even if it's positive, I immediately slip into comparison mode and doesn't feel good, like in my mind and or bodies. But to get back to your question, I do feel like reading, I mean, I hope that it just continues to kind of like grow and grow and grow. But there is nothing like reading a good book or something that inspires you, or with fiction writers, finding our why can be hard, but entertainment is still really important, and making people like feel good, or if they're reading a thriller, feel scared or nervous, or I still think word of mouth is like the strongest sales tactic we have for writers, for business, for entrepreneurs. Because if you think about it, like everybody has something to promote or sell. And I know for me in my brain, now it's so easy to like see an ad for something or see someone post something. I'm like, oh, this looks so cool. And then I just forget about it 5 minutes later. But when you spend time with an actual book, you're spending time on 300 pages, or if you're listening to an audiobook, 10, 15 hours, like you are really stepping into that author's world. And I think our brains are actually really made for longer form content to really like sit and process and absorb and expand instead of just this like bite-sized, quick little TikToks and reels. So I think that's why books will always, always, always be here, because that's historically like the way that we're supposed to consume.
I've always wanted to ask a fiction writer, like, how do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, sitting down to write like a 90,000 word book can seem, and I've had 3 books come out in 1 calendar year. And this is the reality about, because I am traditionally published and I'm with 2 different publishers. And so used to, when you were writing a novel and you got a book deal, you could have, I don't know, 9 months to a year to write the book before you turn it in. And then it's usually another year before it comes out. It's a very slow, creative process. The writer gets time to write, they get time to rest and process and think and like really build this beautiful, beautiful product. Now, to stay relevant, you have to, not have to, but it feels like you have to put out a book a year. And that means, because the production time is so long, that you get about like 3 months. Well, my last thriller, I had 2 months to write it, but 3 months to 6 months to write your book. And that doesn't, I mean, that sounds like a decent amount of time, but with life and kids and businesses and, you know, all the things. And oh my God, emails don't even, one of my favorite writers ever, his name is Cal Newport, and his latest book is A World Without Email. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He has never been on social media. He does not have an email. And he has been so successful without all of that stuff that we fill our time with. And I mean, so I think it's a huge, huge accomplishment today to be able to sit down and write 90,000 words, 100,000 words, because we do consume, on average now, we're on our devices like 10 hours a day. And so think about if you'd spent 10 hours a day learning a language, spending time with loved ones, writing, you could write 10 books in that time. So for me with fiction, because I'm on crazy deadlines, I set very streamlined goals for myself. I aim for 1,000 words a day, which takes me literally, I'm a very fast writer, so I can get that in 30 minutes. And so if I do that twice a day, so I have 2,000 words a day, then I essentially have a good first draft in a month if I really apply myself and write every single day. So it's just a discipline thing. But I also, when I write, it's the one thing I do in life where I am in total flow state. I am channeling. I don't remember any book that I've ever written because it's such almost like an out-of-body experience, but I love that feeling. And I'm so connected, like between brain and body and what I'm kind of putting out into the world. So as frustrated as I get with like the industry and what it's become and what pressure is on the author, the act of writing, I love it so much. And I think it's so important to foster our creativity instead of with our thumbs, you know, like doing everything digitally, but like putting pen to paper, doing something creative. Like we're all creative geniuses. And I think somewhere along the line, we've just forgotten that we all have the ability to create and we're supposed to. But we do get so busy like trying to monetize it or trying to build it or, oh, look at me, like, look what I'm doing. And none of that shit feels good to me anymore. I'm like, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I'm going to create art that feels good to me. And like, I just turned down another, I love my publisher so much. They just offered me another 2-book deal. And I said no, because I was tired of creating in this, like, I would have had to turn in the book in just a few months. And I was like, creating in this pressure cooker doesn't feel great. And so the moment I said no and didn't have a deadline, now the book's pouring out of me, which is so funny.
That's always how it is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But I was really proud of myself. Like, this has really been a season of no for me, and just really like drawing firm lines in the sand with work, with clients, with people, with consumption in general, and just like creating some space so I can do things that I really love and have fun in the process.
This is the pinnacle. I feel like you are what we all are. I mean, I know I personally am just trying to get to that point. I just think it's so beautiful hearing you speak about it. I think is because I think it's easy when you get any amount of success.
Yeah.
To then have that be that fire lit under you. But it's because, like you said, it's society.
Yep.
And it's comparison and it's
Yep.
mental and it's just, I have to. If I don't respond to this email, then I'm not being productive today. And it's like we get addicted to being productive, but what the fuck is that?
Oh my God. And I am like so passionate about this, but the most productive thing we can do as humans is rest. Rest is productive. We were never meant to work 24 hours a day. We were never meant to be plugged in and reachable. I want to write a book called Unreachable. Like just we feel on like literally 24 hours a day. And our nervous systems we're not meant to be in responsive mode and be in reactive mode with work, with our personal lives. We are not supposed to be this reachable. There was that stat that in one day we ingest more information than our ancestors did in their entire lifetimes. And our brains are not making long-term memories anymore. We can't hold the amount of information. And so for me, I've had to redefine what success even looks like because I've noticed every milestone that I've hit, I'm like, okay, cool. What's next? What's next? What's next? There is, you never are like satisfied with what you hit and what you get. And so for me, I've totally reverse engineered that. I'm like, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing and the journey, I don't care about I really do not care about the destination. I used to have all these things that I wanted to hit. And then I hit a lot of them and it felt really empty because I was just reaching and gripping. And I feel like when you're gripping so tightly, you literally aren't open to receive all these other awesome things. And you're like, kind of working and living with these blinders on. And I recently read this book that totally shifted my whole perception of money and success. It's called The Illusion of Money by a guy named Kyle Cease. And everybody should read that book because what we tie to like safety and security and success, it really is all an illusion. And everything that we're searching for is us. Like we are the answer. We are it. And we keep like focusing so hard on these things outside of ourselves, these success metrics we're trying to hit, and it never fills the void because like only we can fill the void. And I think we're so busy with like what everybody else is doing and what society says. And I just haven't ever been interested in what society wants for me and how my life is supposed to look. And ironically, I have a daughter who's 11 who does not give a flying fuck about the way we're supposed to live. And she is her own wild, feral version of this. She so inspires me. And it really is hard because of the world we do live in. And she is not interested in what anyone is telling her to do, how she should feel, how she should look, how she should live. And I'm like, yes, more of this, please. Like and I feel like this younger generation is really, they're all kind of like that. And it's really exciting to watch because they just don't care about what we have kind of built to measure like what it means to be a successful human. How about, are you doing what you want to be doing and what feels good in your body? And for most of us, we're not. We're like numbing ourselves. We're consuming so much, whether it's food, alcohol, TV, like we're just numbing instead of really figuring out like what it is we want and how we want to feel on a daily basis. And we get to decide that. Nobody else does. Not your boss, not your partner, not society, not your friends. Like it's us. And I just feel like there is this shift kind of happening as I feel like people are waking up a little bit and like what we're all doing doesn't feel really great to a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's just that scarcity mindset.
Oh God, yeah. Completely.
And that's where we all have got to work on. I feel like that if you get anything from this episode, just channel you can have opportunity.
Yeah.
You can have money. You can look at Rea. You can literally be so successful. but you don't have to be existing in this digital world that's telling you that you have to be this massive influencer in order to be successful, or for other people to think that. Like, think about the why. Like, do people actually demand that of you? No.
Right.
Were you just demanding that of yourself? Like, man, okay. Well, did anything happen to you post 2020 life? Like when you were coming out of your burnout, did you notice any positive physical, mental, emotional things that happened when you started having those boundaries and you started
yes.
channeling your 11-year-old, which I need her in my life. We all do. Can she come on the podcast?
Yes, she was actually, I used to have a podcast and she came on the podcast because she is that's one of her biggest dreams is to have a podcast. She loves podcasts.
She's gonna be it, man.
Yeah, she's here for great things. I'm not worried about her. But yeah, actually 2020, I know it was very polarizing for a lot of people, but for me, it was one of the best things to have to stop and to really assess, like, who am I surrounding myself with? What am I doing with my life? Like, what do I really want? How do I want my life to feel and look? And so I really started a pretty intense healing journey, just kind of excavate a lot of the stuff that, gets trapped in our body. My husband, Alex, is a transformational breathwork coach. And so every bit of trauma, whether you got made fun of as a kid, it doesn't have to be a big trauma. Someone could say something to you. It gets stuck in our bodies if we don't know how to release it through movement, through voice, through different somatic principles. So I started this really like deep healing work in 2020. And then at the top of 2023, actually, so during the pandemic, I bought a Nordic style tiny home to put in the back of our acre lot to have as both a podcast studio and just a writing studio. I wanted my own space. And so I filled it with kind of like this studio is so beautiful. Like I filled it with all of my favorite things, all the books that I had worked on with clients, first edition books that I'd picked up in Europe and, over the years that my father had gifted me, and crystals and oracle decks. I'm super woo-woo. So I had all my different things in there. And on January 1st, 2023, when I really felt like I had I'd really gone through this healing journey. Everything's kind of great. And I had a fire in that studio and I lost everything. And ironically, I had left a candle burning. I go in there to like meditate and breathe. And it was a miraculous healing candle that caught this goddess of words statue on fire. And I lost absolutely everything that meant the world to me. And I'm not materialistic, but it was my sacred space. I had curated it the way I wanted to. And I just think fire is so cleansing. And at that time, I was so burned out already, like 3 years into my business, that I literally had to burn it all down.
Irony.
To build it back up. And my husband was so great. He was like, don't worry, we're going to make it better than it was before. Because the structure was still fine. So it's totally shifted. It's so minimal and different in there. And that's kind of what I feel like I've done with my body, with my business. I've just cleansed because I felt like even when I own my own business, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel like this, you're like, I get to run the ship. This is going to be so much better than working for someone, but it's so much harder. It's so much more all the time. It's just more. And so I really simplified and had to, again, change my relationship to business, to clients, to money, to myself. And it's just been a game changer.
That is so interesting and just feels like meant to be and just like wild. And what a universal sign. Burn it down.
Literally burn it down, whether you're ready or not. Yeah.
Get back to you. Like, there's so much just in this conversation just makes me just want to leave the office today.
Leave the office, go for a walk, get out in nature.
Be in nature and just, get back. And I love what you said about trauma too. I know that's a whole other topic. But so many of us feel like if we didn't have shitty childhoods, if we didn't have this, a divorce or just anything really traumatic happen to us, but we're still struggling in our 30s and our 40s, whatever, like we're like, I want to do that deep work, but I feel guilty because nothing happened to me. But being bullied.
Oh my God.
Having those little in between the line moments. We've all got that shit that does stick in you.
And living in today's world with all of the chaos and like, I'm not someone, I don't tune into news or media. Like I made a decision in 2020, my whole family did, that we're not going to tune into the news because it just elicits such fear. And I was like, what is this going to do for me? And so instead we really flipped the switch and the script and like just really focused on like, building our own immunity and like just being kind of in this amazing, bubble. But we all have trauma. I mean, I think that's a very like triggering word for some people because trauma comes in all different forms, but to be alive today in this world can be a very traumatic thing based on what you're tuning into. And so, I think that's one of the easiest things to feel better is really stop consuming things that make you feel like shit. Like just stop it. And a lot of that is digital. We, years and years and years ago, like you could flip on the news, but if you weren't getting it on the news or in a newspaper, then you didn't hear about things. And like, I still feel on a deep level, like less is more when it comes to consumption. And just because everything is readily available does not mean you have to tune into it. And I have found that I feel so amazing when like yesterday, I just wanted to be on the earth. Like I went for a really long walk and then just laid in the sun for hours and felt like $1 million.
Yesterday was amazing.
It was so
I laid
amazing.
in the sun too, and I just was like, no sunscreen. Don't
No.
put that shit on
Okay,
me.
that's a whole different conversation. But the sun has been so vilified, and the sun is the biggest, like just like water, just like air, just like breath. The sun is medicine. I have literally shifted my eyesight 2 points in each eye from just getting sunlight into my bare eyes in the morning. It will reset your circadian rhythm, help your gut, your hormones. Like it has been vilified, and it's just look at like really start to kind of question certain things. I feel like what is good for us is nature and, eating good food and water and in-person connection. And it's just the simple things and they don't cost anything. They're free. And so I think if we just all took some time, like we turn off Netflix and just like really tune into ourselves and what we're feeling and what we need. I don't know how many people on a daily basis ask themselves, like, what do I actually need today? How do I really feel? Do I want to do that meeting? Do I want to go do this? Like you have the power to say no. It's not always about money and jobs and responsibility. It's also about you. And if you're not feeling good, like you can't help anybody else.
Yeah.
So I'm like so passionate about getting people to just remember that you can self-source everything and feel great.
Do you have a morning routine or is
I
it?
do.
Okay, I would love to.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd with morning routines.
Oh, me too. So, we're really crazy in our household. So we like unplug the Wi-Fi at night. Once the sun goes down, we have like special bulbs in our house because like light pollution is such a thing with your screens.
I have all these lights on her.
Well, I almost wore my blue blocking glasses today, but that has been such a huge shift for us and just like how we feel, how we sleep. We do not sleep with phones in our room. Like that's kind of first rule of thumb. And so in the morning, I do not wake with an alarm. I have a weird ability. If I need to get up, I can tell myself what time I need to get up and I'll just wake up at that time.
Love.
So I let my body wake up when it wakes up, which is usually right before sunrise. I do not touch my phone. I watch the sunrise every morning. I do my hot water with lemon and sea salt. And then I ground. I watch the sunrise. I do an ice bath. We have like an ice bath and a sauna at our house. Breath work, meditation. And then my husband, no matter what is going on, we sit down and we have our coffee with like our full fat cream
she
and our
drinks coffee.
ghee. I do. Oh
Okay.
God, it's my one.
Ghee.
Ghee. Yep. Ghee. Do my ghee. And we have our coffee chats in the morning. So we sit for like an hour, either outside or in, and just check in with each other. We don't talk about logistics or anything and just connect before we start our day. So by the time we really are getting going, like he does the same thing. So he does his breath work and meditation and, ice bath and all that stuff. And then we kind of come together and we talk and then we move into our day. But that was the best gift from COVID is these slow mornings. Like even if we have to be somewhere, we always like
of that time.
We check in with ourselves first before the moment like you wake up and you check your text and you do all this stuff, you're in reactive mode. I want to be like in my body and like check in with myself first before I give anything to anyone else. And that's not selfish. That's like self-serving and is so important.
Well, I mean, my God, and you're a mom and you have so many people coming at you and just, the demands of just every day.
Yep.
Like you have to be in that or else we're just going to be assholes to everyone.
Literally. And I get so just it's really like I get angered if, because I set a lot of boundaries with clients and stuff too, but I'm sure as most people realize, like you are reachable at all hours of the day. And so I have to make sure that I'm good before I can like check in with anyone or give anything to anyone. But I also used to be so reactive. Like if someone sends me an email, I got to respond right then. Someone sends me a text, oh my God, I have to send it right now. And I have let all of that go. And guess what? The world didn't end. But there's no catastrophes. Like
your business didn't shut down.
My business didn't shut down. Like it's just, I'm really just kind of like learning and testing the waters and just setting my life up in a way that serves me and my family and that feels good. And like we all have that ability. We don't have to be responsive all the time.
And I feel like when you start having those people in your life, clients or professional that, that get it, right?
Yes.
You start treating it like you want it to happen. Like I feel like you just start attracting more of those clients, right? I feel like I've had that shift in the last years with my clients where it's like I'm like, so interesting. A few years ago, people were just coming at me all day, every day. They were so disrespectful. And now I don't have that at all. And it's like
completely.
You do that work.
You
And
really
then
again, I feel like you kind of like attract what you put out and what you want. So it's important.
Okay. So life schooling.
Yes.
I only have a 2-year-old, so we're not even close, but I'm so curious.
Never too early.
I'm so fascinated by this because I just feel like it goes with everything that we're saying about environment, lights. I'm just thinking about public school and my son going to public school and I'm no shame.
Yes, no shame. Like I was a public school kid. I was a nerd. I was salutatorian of high school, valedictorian of college. Like my husband was, very academic. So our daughter was born into this like very academic household where we just kind of assumed like, she'll just go to public school and she'll just do the, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing we don't really check in with. Like, does this make sense? Is this working? But like you look at kids and I feel like by the time they hit middle school, they're so burned out. They kind of lose that like zest and play and they become so self-aware. And I've just seen it with all my friends' kids and just how they're so overscheduled and exhausted and labeled. Like you're the smart kid, you're this, you're that. And parents put such unnecessary expectations on their kids, whether they realize they do or not. So we started our daughter out in Montessori when she was younger. And she went to this kind of cool Montessori public school when she was 6. And she's 11 now, almost 12. But at 6, she just came home. She started like really not enjoying school. They had homework. And I think homework is the dumbest thing ever, unless it's a passion project. If you can't get it done in 8 hours, like it steals time for play and
family
and family. And the school she was going to at that time, if the kids got in trouble, they started taking away recess. And I'm like, at 6 years old, play should be pretty much the only thing that they're doing. So she came home and she's like, I want to homeschool. And I was like, okay, sure. And oh my God. So I took her out of school and made such mistakes. I tried to recreate school at home without really thinking through like, what are we doing? Like I have a full-time, I run a business, like I'm an author, this is crazy. And so I realized like, this isn't going to work. So we found this really awesome, like alternative education program that was 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And it was very like project-based and Socratic method, like all this cool stuff. And then we had her Mondays and Fridays. So we did that for years. And then, long story short, the school ended up folding. And so we were kind of like, what are we going to do now? Because she's so social, but there were no grades. There were no, again, it was very project based. So there was no like comparison with the kids. They move at their own pace and they learn, real life skills. But it was still all on computers at school. They're on screens all day, which I didn't love. It's been proven you do not retain as much information when you are learning on a screen. And so one of the moms at her school runs this amazing wellness institute for adults and had always wanted to run one for kids. So she started this school. It's called Elevation Central, and it is literally life school. So these kids are showing up, and it's for 10 years old and up, because again, that middle school time is the time where you stop playing, you stop going outside, you stop doing all of these things. These kids are barefoot. They are moving. They start with like, ice baths and like they have this like fitness hour, and they are, there's like sound baths or meditation. They learn math and then they cook something, or they learn math and then they go build something. They're opening an amazing market where they have to budget and create things. I'm coming in this semester and they're writing and publishing their books. And these kids are amazing, but they learn by doing and they learn by playing. And it's not about curriculum. It's not about, and not that of course, you need to learn to read and write and do basic math, but there's so much more that happens outside of the classroom in terms of education. How do you learn to look people in the eye and talk to them and ask for what you need and follow your own intuition and do all of these different things that are not taught? How do you learn to check in with your body and know what you want and need? And so these kids are just, it's the most inspiring thing to be around. Oh, it's so empowering.
Yeah.
And again, like I said earlier, like we really are all these creative geniuses, and we don't need to be like compared and labeled. Like that's my issue with school, is it's such an antiquated model, and people teach to the middle because they have to. And so the really smart kids like learn to, smart in quotation marks, like learn to play the game of school. And then if you don't learn well behind a desk,
you're bad
sitting
at math.
still, you're bad at math.
Your whole life.
And it's just so amazing to see these kids be able, there's no desks. Like they can move and play and process and integrate. And it's incredible. And it's, my husband and I still have to like check ourselves because we learned this one way. And it was like, okay, by the 6th grade, you learn, this, and this. And the things that my daughter like says and like comes to us with, I'm like, wow, you are on a totally
different level,
different path.
Yeah.
And it's just been a privilege to watch. But I just, if, people are parents, like there are so many different options out there and different ways of learning that do not have to exist in a classroom. And you can still be super smart and academic and all of these things without, I don't know, just like tying yourself to a GPA.
Yeah, because if you're really talented in one area, you're going to gravitate towards that. And, having a good parent is going to recognize she's just a math wizard, or she loves to build stuff, or she loves to
finding
paint.
What you're passionate about. Like school does not give us the opportunity, traditional school, to go deep and really like figure out what we love. And that's why so many of us go to college and we're there for 4 years. And then at 22, we're like, I don't know what I want to do. Or like, I loved school, but I'm like, I don't use anything I learned in school, like my whole life. Like what?
Yeah.
And I killed myself and I burned myself out and I wanted to prove myself. And so it's just such a pleasure to watch, to let all of that go and watch her just find her way on her own terms and like really love learning. I mean, that's the coolest thing, is just like learning is so fun. And we don't stop because we're out of school. Like learning it's
forever.
Available anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Like she'll read like a 300-page book a day, and then she's so into Greek mythology right now and like can tell me anything about anything. And
she's 11.
She's 11, but she loves podcasts. She's a very auditory learner. And we've learned, okay, how does she like to learn? And really supported that, because that's the thing too. If your kid like, cannot like sit there, because a lot of curriculum now is online, and for a lot of people, they cannot pay attention, and so finding it is a little bit of trial and error, and everybody's different. Some people really do need the structure of a normal school, and I think public school is great, but there are options out there, and I do think like putting your kid in all the sports and the this and the that, like if they want to do that, awesome, but like kids need to be bored. They need to sit and just, that's when the creation comes. That's when the process comes. They need to play. They need to be outside, not inside behind screens. They need to be running wild with their friends. And I mean, it is critical to growth.
I love this. I saw this meme the other day and it just killed me. It was just for millennials. And it was like, imagine it's 1999. It's 10 a.m. You're on your bed. It's a Saturday morning. There's no cell phone. There's no television. You're laying there. You're wondering, is there pizza in the freezer? Is my crush thinking about me? You know, you're wondering what the rest of the afternoon will hold for you. You're bored. And then that was the last time you were bored in your entire life.
It's so true. I think that 80s and 90s, I always like, because I was a child of the 80s and I was like, I would literally lay in my room on the floor, staring at the ceiling, listening to music for hours, or like handwrite a boy a note, and I'd have to wait like all weekend to see if he would write me back on, Monday.
Dreaming. This is where your authorship came from, because you're storylining in your head. I mean, I was a songwriter for years, and I swear to God, it's because I was bored as a child.
Being bored is every time my daughter says she's bored, I'm like, awesome. Like, go create something, go climb a tree, go, and then she does. She loves to draw. And so she's always drawing and just coming up with these like kind of crazy storylines, but she lives in her head. She's almost 12, but is so not interested in like things that a lot of 12-year-olds are. She doesn't want a phone. She's like, I mean, she hears my husband and I talk constantly about all this stuff because she's an only child, but it's really cool to see her perspective and to see her so like in her imagination, because we kind of stop using it at certain points.
Yeah.
And
what's the need right now for an imagine? You know what I mean?
Because we can feel like, that's the thing too. Every time I go, I leave my phone a lot when I go places, when I go to dinner, when I go out on walks, when I drive or have to go wait in lines. I will literally just sit and watch people, and everybody is just crooked over their phone, or in an elevator. It's like, we can't go 5 seconds
at
traffic. Oh my God. I get so irate when I'm like,
you're traffic
passing
scrolling.
Somebody like, just
so
glued
bad.
to their phone. I'm like, what are you doing? Be with yourself. Check in, think, let your mind wander. This is how we were created, to be bored, to process. Like, my favorite thing is going on a walk without my phone. And that's when I get all my like good ideas. That's when I work problems out. That's when I have epiphanies. That's why they always say that, like, when you're in the shower, you get your best ideas because you don't have your phone and you're not consuming anything.
Yeah. Well, and it's like one of your most amazing books. You were in the airport.
Oh yeah.
And you saw the mother and the daughter, and I just was hearing you talk about that on a podcast, and I was like, you weren't on your phone.
No,
you weren't.
On my phone.
You were observing people. You were observing life. You were observing this kind of awful interaction. But like, that is what turned into this incredible book. And so it's just so interesting to me. It's like, what happens? Like you're saying, what can happen to you if you're in a creative rut? Lots of creative listen to this show. Just be. And just observe.
Yes.
And just, but you don't have to be consuming. And I think it goes back to trauma. I think I know for me personally, I'm always expecting a fire.
Yeah.
And I'm always just like, if I don't check my phone every 20 minutes.
Yep. It's the biggest addiction of our lifetime. It is the biggest. We reach for it thousands of times a day. If you did that to a drug or alcohol, you'd be dead. And I don't know why we're not paying more attention to how serious this is. I feel like the smartphone is like the worst creation of our time, because we are so addicted. Like, if you could really clock how many times you reach for it, and everybody's guilty of it. I mean, the fact that we have to set such crazy boundaries with it, but everybody is kind of universally agreed to carry this little computer in their pockets. Like I'm going back to, there's all these companies coming out with these phones that have no blue light, no social media, no scrolling capability on it. And I want to get one, which will make my life a lot harder in certain ways, but I no longer want to be like a slave to this. Like
it'll help that boundary too.
This addiction. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, well, tell us about the light bulb that we need to get because I don't want to overlook the light
Yeah.
bulb.
Well, so actually the easiest thing, so there's some really easy things that people can do. So there is a company called Viva Rays, which are blue light blocking glasses, but a lot of people have blue light blocking screens on their phones that you can get for like $9, or on your computer, there's something called Iris software that blocks 99% of the blue light.
Oh, wow.
And so whenever you are looking at your phone, especially if you're like most people and you check it first thing in the morning before you've gotten sunlight into your eyes, you are signaling the wrong hormones to your body and you're messing yourself up the whole day. Same thing at night. When the sun goes down and you look at your phone, you are actually inhibiting the production of melatonin, which is why so many people don't sleep well because they're looking at their screens.
Which is why you have to supplement melatonin, probably.
Right. And, for a lot of people, like melatonin doesn't even make them groggy or they don't feel great. So Viva Rays is amazing. It has these, there are 3 lenses that come in one pair of glasses. So during the day, if you're on your phone, if you're inside on your computer, if you're under bright lights, you wear them and it mimics sunlight. So your body thinks that you are out in the sun all day. And then once the sun goes down, you wear your orange lenses, which kind of signals sunset. And then an hour before bed, there are these red lenses that mimic firelight, because ancestrally we would sit outside at night and stare into the fire. You will sleep. Like I got them finally for my husband for Christmas. He puts those on and he passes out in like 10 minutes after wearing them. It's such a game changer and such an easy kind of hack for people who like, I'm not going to not look at my phone first thing in the morning, or I'm not going to take it out of my bedroom. So if you can do things to mitigate that, because it really is messing with our hormones, it's messing with how we feel, it's messing with our sleep. And it's really serious.
It's wiring us too.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
We are in constant fight or flight, like constantly. Like every time you pick and our dopamine is so messed up because every time you get an email or a text, like we get these little like pings of dopamine, and you're not supposed to get these happy little hits
all day.
Yeah, or stressed little hits all day long,
leading to the addiction.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It is truly the biggest addiction of our lifetime. And I'm like, why, there's restrictions on alcohol and there's restrictions on drugs. Like, why is there not restrictions on smartphones?
Amen. Well, amen. I mean, there's so many issues around it, from, like we said, driving, from just the mental, from just the physical,
and just
issues.
How people feel, like all the kids,
your neck. Your
oh my
posture.
Gosh. I see these kids too. And like everybody's like bent forward. It's changing.
They'll post, they'll be like, this is a 12-year-old boy's,
gosh.
What am I, his
spine.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh my gosh, he's 12.
Yep.
And it's like, but then you're like thinking of yourself and what we're all going to be like as 80-year-olds. My parents said, they're like big into chiropractic, and they're like, you just need to walk around like this.
You
all
do,
the time.
because we're literally like this.
Yeah, be more opening. Oh,
completely.
My God. Okay,
and look up. Everybody needs to look up.
Look, eyes up. Oh
eyes
my
up.
God. Okay. Well, you are amazing. I could literally
talk to you all day too.
Well, and I feel like there's so many things that we didn't even cover. We didn't even really, last piece. Well, last 2 questions. I really want to hear you if we can talk a little briefly about human design. Because we voice memoed a little bit about this. And
Do you know about it?
No.
Okay. So many people don't, which is such a bummer because it's incredible. But a lot of people know about astrology. So if you've, heard of astrology, I like astrology, but it's not, it's kind of one size fits all in terms of like, oh, you're a Scorpio and this is who you are, or you're this and this is who you are. Human design at its core is actually created from all these different modalities: science, Kabbalah, I Ching, astrology. But it's really the energy map of like who you are. It's a roadmap of who you are, but it's showing where your energy is, how best to work, what your a lot of things, a lot of times people will say like, oh, I have flaws, or I'm this way, or I'm that way. Human design shows you like there are no 2 charts that are the same. but every flaw is actually an asset and an advantage that you can use in your relationships and how you work. It's literally changed how I work. It's changed my marriage. It's changed my relationship to my daughter, my relationship to other people. It is just such a deep dive into who you actually are. And it's very complex. So finding someone who can really read your chart and understand it. There's a really easy book called Human Design by Jenna Zoe, who's kind of like the godmother of human design. But I mean, I constantly talk about it. I think I want to get certified in it because I'm so interested in it. And more than anything, it has changed my relationships to people. Like, I think businesses should have to do their human design charts, like small businesses, and I will hire people or not based on their human design in conjunction with mine. And so what I realize is I'm a manifester, which means I'm a non-energy being. So I actually don't have this endless supply of energy like some designs. And I have been working, my whole purpose in life is to share, to inform people about things, and they either receive it or they don't. I'm not supposed to hold your hand through things. I'm not supposed to be in execution mode. I'm not supposed to work on these like really crazy long form projects, which is how I ran my business for the longest time.
So
I
it's
would
like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so I would get burned out because I was not working in accordance to my design. So if you really understand like where your energy is, like who you're supposed to surround yourself with,
wow.
like it is so in depth and so incredible, but it's so easy to find out. All you need is your birth date, of course. The time of your birth is very important.
Okay.
Where you were born. Well, I already said that. And just your name. It's so easy, but it spits out this chart that is just phenomenal. It's
so
amazing.
To do this.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. So it is zodiac or it isn't?
So it pulls. It pulls from in the chakra system. I mean, it pulls from like 8 different modalities.
Wow.
But it's so different in that, again, no two charts in the world are the same.
Wow.
So it is your chart. No one else is like yours. And it's so in depth. But it also shows you there's something called strategy and authority, which if you're going to start with human design, just pay attention to those two things. But it's even changed like how I make decisions. I'm something called splenic authority, which means I kind of get this little hit in the moment, whether I should do something or not. I am never supposed to pros and cons it. Like, I'm never supposed to think about my decisions. It's either a yes or a no. And I used to just agonize over
so
like,
helpful
it's
that
so
you have
helpful.
that knowing. Oh
it's
my
so
God.
helpful. And my husband is the complete opposite of me. And he needs to, like with decisions, he needs to take his time. He's an emotional authority. So he has to go through like the whole thing. And I used to get so pissed, like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
why are you like this?
I'm an instant processor. Like, I'm so fast and he is so slow. And I used to look at that as something negative. And now I just so honor his process. And my daughter too, she's so different than both of us. So it's helped me understand both of them and encourage, just, I don't know, just certain aspects and like how we all exist together. It's literally changed our relationship.
Okay, I am doing this
Yes.
today.
Oh my gosh. It's so worth it.
Because I feel like I'm in my 30s and I feel like, your 20s, I feel like for me, we're just go,
Yep.
hustle, trying to whatever. And then 30s, I feel like it's like me just trying to figure out myself.
Yep.
Because I feel like I've caught up to myself and
Yep.
she and I are just like looking at the mirror at each other. We're just like, what do you need? And
Yes.
what are you going to do? And what is happening? And I just feel like we would just fast track that
You will.
through this process.
And I didn't find it until I'm 42. So I didn't even find it until I was probably about 40. And there was such a huge shift. And I've loved my 40s. I mean, I love my 30s, but I feel like I just kind of woke up when I hit 40. I'm like, I don't care about doing things the way that I used to do them.
Oh,
and
freedom.
it is so freeing. And it's like, wow, this has been here all along. Like, I wish I had this information earlier, but I think it's also right on time.
Someone asked me one time, they were like, well, what time were you born? And I was like, I don't know.
You do need to know your time.
So that makes
that'll be on your
sense.
birth. If you can you talk to your parents or, it's on your birth certificate, but that does make a difference. But
so interesting.
I bet you're a generator. I'm pretty good at like guessing what people are. And generators are the most, they really are here to get shit done. Like, they can execute. They have like just kind of this amazing battery and like can just
The energy.
go.
You go all day.
Can go all
You can
day.
keep going.
Yep.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm that.
You could be that for sure.
I'd like to know that though, because what if I'm not? Then
What if
it'll
you're
be
not?
like,
exactly.
oh my God.
It is so eye-opening. And it is so tailor-made for you. You're like, how is this even possible? It's like reading the most in-depth description of you, but in the most positive way. Everything can be used as something advantageous versus negative. Or just if you have these like little quirks that you're like, ugh, somebody's complained about that. You learn to use it in a really positive way.
Yeah,
so
you said your flaws, like it leads with that, which I find fascinating.
And they're not flaws. They're just part of you, and you learn to use them as assets, which is like what a great way to look at your life.
Talk about abundance mindset.
Exactly.
It's not that I'm late all the time because I suck.
Nope. Exactly.
It's whatever it is, whatever this human design tells us. Okay, well, that's fascinating. Okay, and then last two questions. I know you said I had another one, but we always ask our guests, what is your definition of a Renaissance woman?
Oh gosh. I love just the whole idea of even coming on this show. I think in our society, we almost feel this pressure to like pick one thing and be so good at this one thing. But I think to be a Renaissance woman means that you get to play and you get to dabble and you get to try things and you get to fail and you get to change your mind and really just be, I don't know, like a whole person and just putting all of that out there in the world without having to prove anything to anyone.
It's so good. There's been so many nuggets. I just can't even tell you. You're so fabulous. I just am so grateful that Lauren Lowry.
Lauren Lowry, you were amazing.
You are so freaking amazing. And thank you for connecting me to this beautiful human. Okay. I know you're not on social. Well, you are on social.
I'm on Instagram. That's it.
So I follow you. It's just at Rea Frey, right?
It's Rea Frey author, actually.
Rea Frey author.
Yes.
So we'll link it in the show notes. And then if people want to work with you,
definitely.
Are you taking on clients right now on the ghostwriting side of things?
Yeah, I'm on all kinds of all sides of things. So I've kind of like revamped some of my offerings. So I'm really more coaching. Workshops, masterminds, things like that. But yeah, everything is on my website at reafrey.com.
Okay.
Everything with how to work with me, how to reach out. I do, these kind of like cool introductory calls just to kind of see what people even really want or need, because I think that's really important as well.
And we didn't talk about this on the show, but it'll be in the show notes. But Rea, how I even got connected by way of Lauren Lowry, helped collaborate and ghostwrite Allie Webb's book, The Messy Truth, which all of our listeners are like, oh my God, we all have copies because we attended the summit. We all got copies and got Allie to sign it. And what an incredible book.
Oh, I mean, it was so, she is truly, I was a little not intimidated to meet her. Like I'd seen her on Shark Tank and I knew about her business. And when her agents reached out to me about it to see if I would be interested, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But ghostwriting is such a specific skill set. So you have to be able to adapt to a person's voice to really interview them. Like it's very different. It looks different for each client. I've done a ton of ghostwriting, but she, and we did it all like via phone. We met a couple of times, but her, she had in her afterward, like she got married, again during the writing of this book and was in such a beautiful place. And then she had this really like big shift in her life, like once we had gotten the book done, and had to really tweak and shift some things. And we had actually written a version. We turned it in. It's something that her editor wanted, and her editor got fired the day we turned it in, and she got a new editor and they wanted something kind of different. So we had to work so fast and furiously to kind of tweak the book and really revamp it. But I loved working with her. She was so great and easy. And I don't know, I think her book's really real and it's her. Yes, I ghostwrote it, but it is her and it's her voice. And so I was so happy that she was pleased with it.
It's a phenomenal book and so cool that you were a part of that story. Cause I just think it was such a needed story.
I agree. Cause right. Like we see her, we see these people, these moguls, like she sold her business for $250 million. She's, this like beautiful person who's had all these different things, but underneath the surface, like there's always a story there, and it's not easy and it's not linear and it's not all like perfectly polished and packaged. And she was so real and vulnerable in it. And I really appreciated that.
I love it because there's such a like social media trend right now. And the trend is being authentic.
Yeah.
And it's like, I roll my eyes because I'm just like, no, y'all. No. Like we have to get away from what's the trend, and it's hard being in my world. But at the same time, it's like, no, it's just human to human.
Human to human.
It's woman to woman. It's entrepreneur to entrepreneur. It's mother to mother. We are all going through shit.
Yep.
And it's messy.
It is so messy.
So it's so time to have women like Allie do that. And she's just, I feel like, set the tone for this year, even though I know it came out last year, but it just feels like this year we're in a different air.
And the mess is beautiful. That's where the good stuff is. I mean, that's even in the book, but it's true. Like the mess it's real, and that's life. Like you can't just be photoshopped and like put out the highlight reel. Like that's not real life. And we don't heal anything that way either. Like we have to feel everything. And that doesn't mean you have to show everything publicly, but it's really, really important to figure out like what is real. And I do think that starts with like being honest with yourself and being able to, again, sit in a room without your phone and like feel your feelings. Just feel your feelings and figure out what you need from there.
And if you find yourself consuming, don't consume things that are that the crazy aspirational things, and obviously there's time and a place, but like, it's consuming people like Allie, like yourself, that are being real on social media and that are sharing these vulnerabilities so that it gives you that permission. So I think it starts with that. I mean, it starts with that inner permission to just be.
And it's so interesting. The last thing I'll say about even tying it back to human design is I talk a lot about social media, and like, I'm not trying to vilify it, but for me, it has never felt really natural, and it just doesn't. It's like this weird barrier. And I found out through my human design that I am never supposed to get business that way or get readers that way. It is always going to be word of mouth to me. Like my chart told me that, and that is what I have always intuitively felt. So it also just like took the pressure off. Like I don't have to do this thing and rely on this thing when everybody's telling me that I do, because there is another way for me. And I've actually proven that. But to actually see it too, like, oh, I'm feeling this way for a reason, it just removes some of the friction with the shoulds, the have tos, which is so cool, I think, because it gives you permission. And I think we're all seeking more permission in our lives, but like we're the ones that have to give it to ourselves.
It starts with you. It literally starts with you. Rea, you're amazing. You are amazing. This was such a treat. Everyone, follow Rea. She may not respond to you.
I respond because it's the only one that I'm on.
She is on the Instagrams. She's a great follow. You have awesome photography and content. You've just
with my crappy old iPhone.
I mean, with the blue light and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are amazing. And thank you guys for listening. And until next week, we'll see you next time.